Senator Roberts.
Thank you. As a servant to the many different people who make up our one Queensland community, tonight I'm going to speak about the need for a Royal Commission into the federal government response to COVID. Here are the latest reasons why, all coming to light since the last Senate sitting. Pfizer vaccine and malignant lymphomas. An article published in the journal Frontiers in Oncology on May asked if the emergence of malignant lymphoma, commonly called turbo cancer, was an adverse event caused by the COVID vaccine, the COVID injection. Researchers injected 14 mice with saline and 14 with the Pfizer COVID product. All the mice given this saline remained healthy. The mice injected with Pfizer appeared healthy. However, one died suddenly 2 days after the booster dose was administered. An autopsy revealed, quote, B-cell lymphoblastic lymphoma following the intravenous high-dose mRNA COVID-19 vaccination at age 14 weeks. The autopsy further found, quote, diffuse malignant infiltration of multiple organs, heart, lung, liver, kidney and spleen by lymphoid neoplasm. End of quote. How many more of these studies showing fatal outcomes from the COVID products are needed before this government accepts our 30,000 excess deaths in the last 12 months are in part caused by these injections? Second point, 1 in 35 recipients of a Moderna COVID booster experienced myocarditis. According to the TGA, myocarditis is a very rare adverse outcome of the COVID injections, occurring at the rate of 1 in 33,000. A gold standard, peer-reviewed paper study by leading cardiologists at the Basel Hospital University in Switzerland has found the rate of myocarditis serious enough to place the patient under restricted activity was not 1 in 33,000, but 1 in 35. Not 1 in 35,000, 1 in 35. 44 of the 777 participants were found with cardiac troponin markers in their blood levels that showed their hearts were damaged and that damage could not have resulted from any other factor but the Pfizer injection. Those same patients demonstrated reduced antibodies against viral and bacterial infections as against an unvaccinated cohort. Average age of the subjects was only 37 years. This is an age where a heart attack is far from their mind. It's an age where someone would get the injection and then go about their life, including exercising, and in so doing risk serious heart complications or even being another died suddenly statistic. Safe and effective was two lies. Third, hospital deaths from respiratory failure increased after the COVID products were at 90%. This is data from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare on the ECMO protocol. ECMO was a controversial and experimental intensive care treatment for COVID because protocols dictated that GPs were not allowed to treat patients in the community with antibiotics. Not allowed. Instead, they were told to go home without treatment until they could not breathe. Instead of receiving antibiotics in the community, as they should have, they got sicker and sicker and developed pneumonia. Then they were put on ECMO, then some of them died. The rate of ECMO protocol use rose from 12,000 in 2020 and 2021 to 18,000 in 2022, despite a 90% COVID injection rate. Many of those cases resulted in death. Add to this the growing list of data showing that COVID products did more harm than good. Peer-reviewed papers showing that. Fourth item, Plasmidgate. The vaccines may be contaminated. Leading virologists have tested the contents of the Pfizer vaccines and found they did not meet the standards set out by the FDA for contaminants. COVID vaccines contains mRNA strands which are grown in a vat using a derivative of E. coli as the base solution. Contaminants from that process are removed and then the remaining DNA strands are encased in a protein to protect the strand called a lipid nanoparticle. It is impossible to completely remove contaminants, so the FDA and Australia have set a maximum standard for safety of 10 nanograms per dose. Samples tested had contamination of 330 nanograms per dose, 33 times above safe levels. Even worse, some of that contaminant was encased in lipid nanoparticles, protecting the E. coli-derived genetic material and introducing that into subjects, into people. We don't know the side effects resulting from this genetic material being taken up by the body, and that is malfeasance, deliberate ignorance to maintain the safe and effective lie. Scottish data shows a clear correlation between COVID injections and neonatal deaths. Data from Scotland shows a clear correlation between the rate of COVID injection in mothers and the rate of neonatal deaths 9 months later. Deaths rose in line with vaccination rates and then fell once the booster rate fell. One correlation can be significant, but a correlation between both the increase in injections and then the decrease in injections is telling. 6. Excess deaths in Australia are 27% above expected levels, more than a quarter. Perhaps we do know the side effects of this malfeasance by the TGA and the Department of Health. The Australian Bureau of Statistics provisional mortality figures to April 2023 show mortality is running 12.3% above the expected level. But wait, there's more. When I asked the Australian Bureau of Statistics about this data and sent estimates, the ABS were very clear in saying this data only shows 85% of the deaths. It's provisional. It is entirely correct to add that to the provisional mortality figure, meaning excess mortality in Australia in April this year was 27% higher above where it has been since the COVID injection about where it has been since the COVID injection started. Around 30,000 more Australians have died in the last 12 months than were expected to die. 30,000. And yet this body count is being ignored by our health authorities, by our parliament and by our media. 7th, Professor Angus Dalgleish has called for the COVID injections to be suspended. Highly respected veteran consulting oncologist Professor Angus Dalgleish has called for the immediate suspension of COVID vaccines because of the high rate of adverse events. The professor went on to say, quote, "I have no doubt that the vaccines are associated with the current increase in cancers that are being witnessed around the world. They suppress the innate and T-cell system, making your body much weaker at defending itself from new viruses. This also has the additional effect of disturbing T-cell surveillance of dormant cancers. The mRNA of the spike protein, quote, binds to genes that normally control cancer." Continuing the quote, "It is high time that patients and the medical profession rose against the dreadful imposition of what was essentially a mandatory vaccine with no informed consent." They're the professor's words. One Nation could not agree more. We agree entirely. It's time for a Royal Commission. I call on the Prime Minister to call the COVID Royal Commission today.